The Sports Time Podcast.
All right, I am pleased to be joined by Eric Toft of Eric Toft 21 Sports. How's it going, Eric?
Pretty good, man. How are you?
I am doing wonderful. Of course, last night, or actually at the time of this recording, it was the NFL draft happened just a few minutes ago. What did you think of the first day of the 2021 NFL draft?
You know what? As a Lions fan, I'm happy we got a franchise tackle. I like what the Bears did. I mean, it was really interesting, and it was nice to see fans there. I'm really shocked about how much I missed fans, even though I liked last year's draft with how it was done.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of forget about how the fans are. Like, I think it was at UFC 261 on Saturday. Like, there were like fans at like 15,000. It was just kind of crazy how many fans there were and how much you really miss them. And I think they make such a big difference. And I think Roger Goodell recently said that he hopes or he plans to have most stadiums at full capacity, which is going to be great because you get back to normal or close to normal. So we'll see what happens there. Let's start off with Trevor Lawrence. He goes to the Jaguars. That's not a surprise, but do you think the Jaguars do you think the Jaguars are going to be decent next year?
I think they're going to take all those young guys are going to have a little bit of a growing pains. It's going to take Lawrence a little while to get used to the NFL game and the speed. I think they're probably 2 years away, but I think it's important that he experiences the lumps and gets used to NFL coverage and everything. So I think next year is going to be a long year, and then the year after they're going to be good.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Urban Meyer's first year. I mean, Urban Meyer is similar to Trevor Lawrence, is not used to losing. Everywhere he goes, he wins, but he's in the college game that's completely different. So it'll be interesting to see what the Jaguars do. But I feel like there'll be more people liking the Jaguars just because, like you said, in a few years, I think they'll be a really good team. What did you think about their draft picks of Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne?
I was a little bit shocked that they drafted Etienne from Clemson. I thought for sure they're going to go on the defensive side of the ball. I thought they were going to stick with Robinson as their RB1 and try to look somewhere else. Because when you think about it, they have a lot of playmakers with the wide receiver core. So that pick kind of surprised me, but I like the player that they got.
I know this kind of surfaced, and I just recently saw this, but Tim Tebow, I guess, called or talked to the Jaguars about possibly trying out for tight end. What do you think about that?
If I was Tebow's dad, I'd say, son, it's time to get a real job. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? Like football, baseball, football. I thought he was actually pretty good on the SEC channel when he was doing their little pregame show. I think he should just go back to that. I think he kind of needs to give up the dream, not to be mean or anything.
Yeah, I mean, if he would have done that earlier, like when he was with the Patriots and tried to play tight end, I think he would have had a better shot because I think that was the time Aaron Hernandez kind of went through that whole scene. So I think, like I said, I kind of agree with you. I think it's time for him to, just kind of give up on that. But I think he missed his opportunity of playing tight end when he was with the Patriots and even when he was with Jets. I mean, that was that was messed up the way it like happened. He wasn't really a quarterback, and I feel like if he would have played tight end earlier, that would have been a better scenario. So let's go into the next place. The San Francisco 49ers take Trey Lance. I was a little shocked. I thought they were going Mac Jones. I do think Trey Lance is a better quarterback, but how do you think Trey Lance will do in his first year in San Fran?
I think he's a project. I think it's going to take him a little while to get used to it. I think that's why they didn't used to the NFL game. I think that's why they didn't trade Jimmy Garoppolo. But yeah, I was really shocked they took Lance too. That kind of caught me a little bit off guard.
Speaking of Garoppolo, do you think he'll stay with the Niners at least for this season?
For this season, they have to. I really think that this team's built to win now, especially if Bosa comes back and they can add that pass rush and have the quarterback go through his progressions. So I think he gives them the best shot of winning now. And the thing that the Lance pick surprised me is, I mean, honestly, if Shanahan doesn't win like this year or next year, he's going to be back to being an OC. They're kind of in a win now situation with them. And I don't think Lance is the best win now quarterback prospect that was on the board at that time.
Yeah, I mean, if I was the Niners, I would have probably taken Justin Fields because, I mean, to be honest with you, they could have probably I don't know if they could have got Lance at 12 if they wouldn't have moved up. But in my opinion, if I was the Niners, I would have taken Justin Fields. But we'll see what ends up happening there with the 49ers. Yeah, as you mentioned, they're a must-win now team. And I feel like, if Kyle Shanahan doesn't get this right, he's not going to be a head coach very much longer. You mentioned you're a Lions fan. They took Penny Sewell. I was a little stunned that they took an offensive tackle. I thought they would go like wide receiver Devontae Smith, but what did you think about the Lions Picket for Penny Sewell?
I loved it. I think this guy is the one guy in the class that is a bona fide Hall of Famer. I can't even remember the last time we had just a Pro Bowl season for an offensive tackle. Yeah, that's how bad our line is. We have so many, I hate to say we, but Lions have so many holes. They need everything. And I'll be honest, I like the Smith, the player, but he's just so small. I don't feel like he can last the whole NFL season. And if you're going to take a wide receiver that high in the top 10 or the first round, I feel he needs to be a wide receiver one. And I just, with Smith's size, I don't think he is.
How long do you think Jared Goff will be with Detroit? Because I feel like he could be gone after this season, even if he has somewhat of a decent year.
Oh, they are totally tanking for the quarterback from North Carolina. I'm spacing on his name. Of course I am now, but Sam, last name starts with H, but they're tanking on that guy. That's who they want their quarterback to be. So next year is going to be a long year for my Lions.
I think Matt Stafford's going to have a great year with the Rams, and I'm kind of glad Stafford got out of there because he tried so hard for that team, for that franchise, and they just never could put it together. But, speaking of Matt Stafford, how well do you think the Rams will do this season?
I think the Rams are going to do good. I think the big key for them this offseason was that whole Aaron Donald thing, because that defense is completely different when he's not out there. And for that thing just to be a farce and him not facing any suspension was huge. So I think that's big. That was the big thing for them. Stafford, huge upgrade over Goff. He'll take more shots down the field. And Goff's big issue is throwing when he had people in his face. And Stafford's been doing that for years in Detroit. So, that's a huge upgrade for them.
Yeah, I feel like the Rams have a very good shot of going to the Super Bowl this year. They have the team. It's going to be fun to watch the Rams because I feel like they could win 12 or 13 games. And finally, Matt Stafford, finally people realize how good a quarterback he is, because most people, when they see Matt Stafford, they just say, oh, he's just a good stat quarterback. But you don't realize that Matt Stafford does so much. And the only time people get to see him is like on Thanksgiving games, and then they totally forget about him. So I'm rooting for Matt Stafford. I hope he has a great season with the Rams. And I kind of hope they make the Super Bowl, at least make a run at it. Let's go back to Devontae Smith. He goes to the Eagles at number 10. Do you think the Eagles should have done that, or do you think the Eagles should have stayed at 12 and got a different receiver?
I think they just should have stayed put and seen how the draft board kind of broke. Because the Cowboys, because they traded with the Cowboys, if I'm spacing right, and was it the Cowboys?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, they traded with the Cowboys. The Cowboys obviously wanted Horn or the cornerback Sutton from Alabama. So the Cowboys, you know what I mean? Like, Cowboys wanted to move back as is. Cowboys were never going to draft a wide receiver. I think they could have stayed put, and I think they could have got Smith.
Well, it was weird to see two division rivals, especially the Eagles and Cowboys, who hate each other, and they actually did a trade together, which was really weird. But yeah, as you said, I think the Eagles probably could have stayed with Devontae Smith. I like Devontae Smith, but I don't know how long he'll last. But it is a different game now, so we'll see what exactly happens with Devontae Smith. But I think I think it's what the Eagles needed. But I don't even know if Jalen Hurts is the future, really. But do you think Jalen Hurts is the future in Philly?
Well, back to what you said about the wide receivers, all their wide receivers they have are just field stretchers. So they definitely got somebody that's a playmaker. Piggybacking what you said, I'm not a big Jalen Hurts guy. I think he's very limited at what he can do, doesn't have the arm strength, very inaccurate. I don't think he's the future at all.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Eagles do, because I feel like they were flirting with a quarterback, but just decided to keep Jalen Hurts for 1 year and see what he does. I feel like that whole Carson Wentz situation kind of got screwed. But speaking of Carson Wentz, how well do you think he'll do with the Colts this season?
I think it depends on who they draft or who they trade for to play left tackle. Their left tackle retired. I think Wentz has the yips right now. He's scared to get hit. They need someone reliable on that left tackle position to protect his blind side. And it's all contingent on that.
Well, I'm a little shocked right now. The Colts really haven't done anything else in free agency. They have so much money, it feels like, every year, and they don't do much. And really, they only have T.Y. Hilton at the wide receiver. I know they have a plethora of running backs, and they have Jack Doyle at the tight end position, but I mean, why do you think the Colts haven't really done much at the wide receiver position?
I think they're probably going to draft somebody. I mean, this wide receiver class, the two Moores, Rondell, and the kid from Ole Miss, Elijah, are still on the board. Plus, they got Pittman last year. And Paris Campbell has always been high, but he always gets hurt. So maybe they see him as their slot receiver, and then they'll get one of the Moores. But to answer your question, I really don't know.
What do you think about a guy like Tutu Atwal? Do you think he would fit well with the Colts offense?
That's a tough question, man. I mean, I don't think so. I really don't. With how it's built, I don't think so.
I feel like Tutu Atwal kind of plays similar to T.Y. Hilton, but at the same time, I feel like the Colts need more of a receiver to be like a red zone threat receiver, not necessarily a speed demon, but we'll see what happens there with the Colts. It's going to be interesting because I think they'll win that division, but the Titans are going to be solid again this year, especially if Derrick Henry has another monster season. Do you think there's a dark horse team that could come out of nowhere and possibly compete this year for a Super Bowl?
I think the Chargers can. I love the pick from Slater. He's versatile. He can play all over the line. They have Bosa that can get to the quarterback. They also, Austin Eckler is going to be back from injury. I think they have all the pieces. And if you look at it, the only teams that have been to the Super Bowl where their quarterback wasn't on a rookie quarterback was Tom Brady, Carson Wentz. Wentz was on his rookie contract, Matt Ryan, and Peyton Manning. So, I mean, looking at the rookie quarterbacks, I mean, I love what the Browns are doing, but is that really a surprise because they're expected to be there now? So, I mean, the under the radar team would probably be the Chargers for me.
I mean, yeah, if you just look at what Justin Herbert was able to do last year was very amazing. I mean, I don't know if he would have gotten Rookie of the Year if Joe Burrow would have played the whole 16 games, but Justin Herbert was very impressive, especially towards the end of the season, and it's going to be fun. I mean, it's kind of too bad the Chargers are in LA now instead of San Diego because I feel like they'd get more exposure if they were in San Diego because they have like no fans. But I mean, I'm excited if the Chargers are good. I would like to see that because I think Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback, and I think, like I said, guys like Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, all those guys. What did you think? I saw the Buccaneers, their last pick in the first round, or actually, do you think the Buccaneers will take a quarterback in the second round to replace Brady in a few years, maybe?
I don't. It all depends like how it breaks down. I mean, I really think they need a defensive lineman because Sue's getting up there. If the kid from Texas A&M Mond, he's still on the board, I could see them taking him. I think he could project to be a good quarterback and he needs to sit for a little bit in the third or fourth round.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were talking about, I think it was Chris Sims of Pro Football Talk. He thought maybe that Justin Fields would fall all the way to number 32 to the Buccaneers, which I didn't think was going to happen. I thought Fields was going to fall, but I didn't really think he was going to fall that late. But I don't know. I feel like the Buccaneers do need a quarterback eventually because Brady, it doesn't seem like it, but I think Brady's going to eventually get older and he's going to have to retire.
Father Time is undefeated. You know, it's only a matter of time, but it's so weird because like we saw tonight, like there's like some picks that just come out of left field and everyone's like, whoa, you know, like the Raiders pick with Leatherwood, that some picks just come out of left field. And it's just always hard to predict like how their board will play out.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the Raiders. I mean, it seems like every year they draft a player that we don't know about or that we think that's maybe a second or third round pick. Like they took, Cleveland Farrell a few years ago, and he was more of a second round grade guy, and they took him with the fourth overall pick. And it seems like the Raiders are always that team that, you know, takes a guy that probably shouldn't be a first round pick and takes him. And usually they kind of struggle. So, I mean, do you know why the Raiders possibly do that every year?
I wish I could answer that. I hated what they did last year. I mean, I like Alex Leatherwood. I think he's going to be a good pro, but that's a guy that could have gotten pick 48. You know, like it just doesn't. What Mayock and Gruden do just don't make sense. They always reach for players.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how that always works because I feel like the Raiders are always that team, even before Gruden, before Mayock. They were always, I mean, back in the day when when they were really good, they would always draft guys like that we wouldn't expect, or the fast guys. And it was really weird how the Raiders would do that. But I mean, we'll end up seeing what happens with those like guys like Alex Leatherwood. We haven't talked about Justin Fields yet. What do you think, or how well do you think he'll do with Chicago?
I think he will do good wherever he goes. We have to remember when he came out of high school, he was rated higher than Lawrence. And everyone seems to forget that. He went to Georgia. He got low on the depth chart. He had to go to Ohio State. I really feel if he just would have went from Ohio State from the get-go, he would have been the top pick overall and not Fields. I'm waiting for the 30 for 30 on why he fell. It doesn't make sense to me why, with everything he does, the mobility, the athleticism, the deep ball, yeah, he does it. He makes some bad reads, but all these kids make some bad reads. So it doesn't make sense why it fell that much to me.
Yeah, I don't know why. Like, seemed like they were always trying to find something against Justin Fields, and it feels like every year, at least every draft, there's always a quarterback that falls late. Like Justin Fields this year, I think a few years ago it was Dwayne Haskins, I think, but of course Haskins wasn't very good. The year before that it was Lamar Jackson. It seems like almost every year you have that quarterback that falls, but it was just weird how Justin Fields, this really good player at one time, the second best quarterback outside of Trevor Lawrence, and all of a sudden when the end of February after he declares to the draft, he's possibly a late first round pick. It was just weird how they kept on finding things against him. And I mean, I think he'll do well. And I'm just really shocked the Bears made the right pick, because we'll see what ends up happening with the Bears. Because as you mentioned earlier, Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, they are pretty much fighting for their job, because if they don't get this right, they're probably going to be out.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, this trade screamed, hey, I'm trying to make up for not drafting Mahomes and Watson by trading up for Fields because he was still on the board. That's what the pick screamed to me. The trade, excuse me.
Yeah, it was. I mean, if we go back to 2017, it was just like I didn't know much about Mahomes, and I don't really get mad at the Bears for not drafting Mahomes, but they had a chance to draft Deshaun Watson, who everybody thought was the best quarterback going into the draft that year. And it was just weird how they traded so much spots for Mitch Trubisky, and maybe they thought something with Trubisky because some people did say he would do well in the NFL, but that just was a complete waste of a pick. And yeah, as you mentioned, I think, like I said, Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, they better get this right, which I think with Justin Fields, they got it right. They have the defense. It's going to be interesting to see what the Bears do this season.
Yeah, a lot of pressure on Nate. A lot of pressure on that guy.
Yeah, I mean, he did well his first year, but these last 2 years have been very disappointing. And I feel like he has to win at least a playoff game this year in order to keep his job. So.
Oh, exactly. I agree with you 100%.
All right, as we wrap up the interview, you have your podcast. Can you tell us more about it, how it came to be, all that good stuff?
Last year during the lockdown, I was approached by somebody to talk about, before the lockdown, I was approached by my friend Gino to come on his podcast and talk at XFL. I just kind of piggyback from that. I do a weekly podcast every Saturday, just talk about the week in sports. I do a lot of sports betting stuff. I talk about sports betting angles. And every Saturday, my boy Brandon, who's an iRacer, come on and we give an in-depth NASCAR preview.
Okay. Actually, now that you mentioned the XFL, when do you think the XFL will be able to come back?
I hope next year, because I don't know about you, but that dead period when there's no football is really hard for me. So like I love the sport of football. I really hope it comes back. I thought overall it was a good product, but I mean, I think a lot of it just depends with like how this COVID stuff plays out, because unless they have live fans, I don't see it working.
Well, I mean, you mentioned COVID. I think the XFL was doing really good before the COVID shut everything. And I think they had some good rules like the challenge rule with the Xbox and only going a minute. And then once a minute happens, then you make the ruling. Because it seems like in the NFL, they have that where they challenge something and it takes forever. And it takes at least 10 minutes just to get a call overturned or keep the call the same way. So I do think the XFL had a lot of good ideas, and I'm definitely excited for it to return. All right. Thanks for joining. Again, you can check your podcast. Are you on Apple Podcasts and Spotify?
I'm on Apple Podcast. It's the ETOF 21 Sports Podcast. It comes out every Saturday midday.
All right. Thanks for joining. Again, I had a pleasure talking. I love talking football, and good luck to your Lions.
Thanks, man. We're going to need it. It's going to be a long road.
All right. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Sports Town Podcast, or the STP Pod for short. If you want to check out more videos of the Sports Town Podcast, click on the left. If you want to subscribe to the channel, click on the right.